Yes. Okay. So I'm going to check now to make sure we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Yep. Here we are. Oh, very good. We are live. We are live.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Half a day, Todo Samzu. Ni Omega. Hello to all of you that are watching. Guahu si Michael Luhan Bavakwa. My name is Michael Luhan Bavakwa. Zanguawi curator, Padi Museo in Guahan. I am the curator for the Guam Museum. And for the past few months, we have been honored to have in our rotating gallery downstairs in the museum an exhibit called Manga Hokusai Manga. And this exhibit was made possible through a collaboration and through the hard work of our local Guam Japanese consulate. And from the consulate, we have here today Reia Tsumori, who will be talking with us today about, what it took to get this exhibit into our gallery here at the Guam Museum. And so, half a day, half a day.
Good morning. Thank you for joining today. My name is Reia Tsumori from Japan Consulate. It's great opportunity to introduce you about the traveling exhibition Manga Hokusai Manga. And Dr. Bebakwa, thank you for such a wonderful event. I appreciate it.
No, Hago Mas, you're very welcome. This exhibit has been a joy to have in our museum because we still have typhoon damage where our permanent exhibit, the Hinanauta exhibit, remains closed as we await much needed repairs. So it has been wonderful to have the Manga Hokusai manga exhibit there so that people can still, visit the museum and see an exhibit, become educated and enlightened. And so, Ray, I wanted to ask you if you could talk to us about how it came to be that we got this exhibit. Tell us about the work of the Japan Foundation.
Yes, uh, this is this exhibition, Manga Hokusai Manga, is conducted by Japan Foundation, which is a cultural agency affiliated with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And its goal is promoting international understanding through cultural exchange. With the cooperation of Guam Museum, we work to bring this exhibition to Guam. It's kind of traveling exhibition, so it travels around the world, including various areas of the States, Europe, and India. And before coming to Guam, it's held in Honolulu. And then after Guam, it will head to Taiwan.
Oh, Sedus Masi, thank you so much. And so for those of you who aren't familiar with this, with Manga Hokusai Manga, um, this is from our opening day here. Our opening event, you can see here we had Imaga Hagan, the governor of the island, as well as the Japanese consulate general join us. We have our staff from the museum there and the staff from the consulate general gathered together for that. And so this is did you Ray, did you want to say a little bit about the exhibit, or did you want me to talk about the exhibit?
I, yes, please. You can go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay. And so Manga Hokusai Manga. And so for many of you, you may be familiar with the term manga. And many of you, you may be familiar with the name Hokusai. You may have heard them separately and you may not have thought about them together. But this is one of the things that makes this exhibit so special. And so if when you walk into the exhibit, you can see already this iconic image, this print created by the artist Hokusai, who is a Japanese master artist. Um, and so this image of the Great Wave from the 36 Views of Mount Fuji series is iconic. People around the world are familiar with this image. Many people may have this image on the case of their cell phone. They may have it as a poster in their wall, in their college dorm room. They may pick to have it as their screenshot or their screensaver on their computer. It is a very famous image, one that extends far beyond just Japanese history, but it's one of those images that truly made the artist Hokusai an international master and a master of art history for the entire world and not just for Japan. What this exhibit provides is a story, you know, providing the history of the artist Hokusai and and helps us understand him in his historical context, but also helps us understand his influence on something where many of us who know his most iconic work may not know that he was also influential in terms of starting manga comics, comic books, Japanese style comic books. And so these here are two drawings of Hokusai. One from his life when he was alive in the 1800s, and then the other is a more recent manga depiction of Hokusai the artist. And he is it's to sort of cover his life is interesting in and of itself. His he was an artist from a very young age, but his most famous work he did not do until the last decade of his life. So, for example, these images, the 36 views of Mount Fuji, these were not done until the 1830s, and which was the last 10 years of his life. He lived from around 1760 until 1839, and so he lived a long life. Um, he lived a long life, and he completed more than tens of thousands of artworks, drawings, prints, paintings over the course of his life. And so in the exhibit, if you come down to the Guam Museum, remember that this exhibit is up tomorrow, Tuesday, and then Wednesday is its last day. The hours that you can visit are 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and it is completely free. You know, this we appreciate the opportunity to share this history and this culture with the community, and because of the work of the Japanese consulate, it is completely free. It's completely free. So as you go into this exhibit, you will see images from another time. This is sort of from the 1700s and the 1800s of Japanese history. And so you will see, for example, these illustrations, these prints by Hokusai, who over the course of his life did so many different types of art. In fact, in the last few years of his life, he remarked that he wished he could stay alive 5 or 10 more years so he could actually become a good painter. Sort of joking and reflecting on his life of work and all of the varied styles. For many artists in the past, you had a style, you had a way, and you had to keep painting that your entire life. But Hokusai tried many different things. So book illustrations, wood prints, but also paintings as well. And one of the things that I found when I was reading up on Hokusai for this exhibit is that he would do also live paintings in which the community would come gather and watch him paint things. And it was a huge spectacle and a huge sort of exciting show to have this famous artist, painting something right before your eyes. And so let me share with something. Actually, I wanted let's share this real fast. And our guest Reia might be a little bit embarrassed because she is in it, but this is a video that Reia helped make, inviting people to come and visit the exhibit. And so let's start with this, where you can get a little bit of you can get a little sense of what you'll see in the exhibit, and then I'm going to go into more detail.
Hi, my name is Reia Tsumori, and I'm the administrative staff of Consulate General of Japan. It's my pleasure to invite you to the traveling exhibition, Manga Hokusai Manga. This exhibition is traveling around the world, arrived from Honolulu and then next to Taiwan, after Guam. Please come by our exhibition, open at the Guam Museum from Tuesday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., from September 6th to November 15th. We hope more and more people in Guam enjoy our exhibition and get interested in Japanese artworks, not only traditional Japanese art ukiyo-e, but also modern comic culture. Let's take a look.
Ooh, biba, biba, biba. And so that Sidusmasi, Rhea, for being the voice and the face in that video. That video was edited and created by one of our museum assistants, Kei Kidasai Sidusmasi K Puribidamo. And so in that video you got a sense of the types of things that you'll see in the exhibit. And so let's talk about some of the things that you'll see if you come down to the exhibit. Remember, tomorrow and the day after tomorrow are the last 2 days that you can visit it.
Yes.
And so this issue, this exhibit really talks about that historical connection. Hokusai as the historical figure, how he helped develop, sort of with others, manga, and then how it has grown and evolved over the years, right? And so that's why you can see from the very moment that you walk in, you'll see the iconic image from Hokusai, but then you'll also see more contemporary drawings put onto Hokusai's image, showing the way in which there is this evolution from this regal and this esteemed sort of image from the past, but how it has influenced much more commercial and much more popular art forms up until today. And so when we begin, let's begin actually with these 36 views of Mount Fuji. And so these are part of a style of painting, excuse me, a style of print, woodblock prints. And so that makes them even more interesting and special when you look at them, because it is one thing when you paint, when you just paint something. It is another when you have to carve a piece of wood, carve several pieces of wood, each of which represents a different color, and then print them together to produce an image that has depth, that has different colors and tones to it. And so, this was one of the things that made Hokusai different than a lot of other artists at the time, was the fact that he was being influenced by Western artists. And that Japan, early on in Hokusai's life, Japan was still very restrictive in terms of people, non-Japanese knowledge, technology, culture coming into Japan. But there were examples of European art which hadn't made its way into Japan, And Hokusai and a few other artists saw that and were trying to learn from it, trying to incorporate it into their own art. So what we see, for example, with the 36 Views of Mount Fuji and other work is we see an example of perspective. So that it was very common throughout much of the world to paint things that are very flat. So everything is kind of happening in the same place, the same level. But what you can see here is, of course, that Hokusai puts Mount Fuji, which is so big and massive, in the background, far away, small, and this wave is massive above it. And that gives you a sense of perspective. It's far away, which means, of course, it would appear much smaller, much smaller. And this is something which nowadays it's very common for us to think that, oh, yeah, of course, you have to draw it like that. But for most of human history, people drew things and painted things and represented them in a very flat way. That sort of the figure is here, the background is here, and they're kind of the same size, or their proportions are not related to how they would be in real life. So it doesn't really look realistic. The way we see the world, something far away is small, something small, if it's close to us, is large. So we see in Hokusai, and this is what made it very dynamic for that time, we see him using perspective to create these very iconic and interesting images. And sort of the use of Mount Fuji was, Mount Fuji is a very important place in Japanese history. And one of the things that, one of the reasons why Hokusai's series became so popular was because the 1830s, for example, was a time when more and more people around Japan were traveling around Japan. And so because of iconic landscape images that you could put into books and then people could buy them or people could see prints of them, it spurred an interest in people traveling to these locations and visiting them. So really, and this is, a lot of people really don't think about this. Guam is such a tourist economy. And so these images from Hokusai are part of the Japanese tourist economy, their internal tourist economy, really like inspired by people traveling, but also in the images inspire people to travel as well. It makes you wonder. I know, Reia, you have heard of Mount Lam Lam down south in Guam. That's the tallest mountain or hill on Guam. Somebody should do 36 views of Mount Lam Lam. I think that somebody should do a series of views. If I was any good at woodblock printing, then I would do it. But I'm not very good at woodblock printing. Maybe I will encourage my oldest child, who's a better artist than me, to do some woodblock prints of 36 views of Mount Lam Lam. And so one thing that you also see in this is that you'll also see a mention of, so Hokusai had a number of different wives and children, but one of his children stands out because she was also an assistant and became an artist herself. And so she is depicted here in manga style as a character sort of in a manga, because one section in the exhibit talks about Hokusai as a character, not a historical figure, but how contemporary artists love to put him into their comics as a character, that because of how he has influenced so much, how he is so important, they love to recreate his life and recreate him as a figure. And this is also true for his daughter. And so I wanted to actually share, because in the exhibit, there is a trailer for an anime film that was made about his daughter. And so if you'll give me 1 second, I can share that. Here we go. So in English, it is called Miss Hokusai.
ヘンチキなじじいがおりましてさ。120畳敷きの紙に大だるまを書いてみたり、かと思えば米一粒にスズメを2羽書いてみたり、鉄道でお分かりなくば絵師の北斎、それならばお分かりかい？そのヘンチキが俺の父ですのさ。
おめえもそろそろ自分の絵を描いたらどうかってな。
出てけ！
人は描けてるがどうも色気がない。
あのバカ、知りもしねえくせに描くからボロを出す。
よ、姉さんどうした？
そもそも嫁入り前の娘にこんな絵を代筆させる北斎先生が。
病人が怖いのか？鉄道は弱虫だから病気が怖いのさ。
地獄絵が真に迫ってたから。
おい、その屋敷とやらへ案内しな。今度はぼやじゃ済まねえぜ。
料理はしない、掃除はしない、ゴミが溜まったら引っ越しゃいい。親父と娘で筆2本、箸4本あればどこへ転んだって食っていくさ。
Right. Now, one of the so for me, I have not actually watched that anime, and so I'm very interested in getting a copy of it to learn more about it. But one of the things that you can see definitely is that Hokusai was, first of all, Hokusai had a lot of different names. Over the course of his life, his name changed many times, and that was, that was something that happened as you for example, as you studied under somebody in their school, they might give you a name. As you moved into a new phase of your life, you might take on a different name. I know at one point he actually gave his name, his artistic name, to one of his students to carry on, and then took on a new name. And so one thing you can see there in what the character of the daughter is saying is that Hokusai did go all over. He had lots of different phases. And earlier I said that he passed away in 1839. He passed away in 1849. So he did live well into his 80s. And so he had a long life, had a big, huge impact on a whole number of things. But it showed there sort of what I mentioned earlier, that he had, there was many stories of Hokusai, some of which might be legendary, such as the famous painting on the pieces of rice, and what a great master to be able to paint on a grain of rice.
Yeah.
And I know that I did read about one story in which Hokusai was invited to compete against another artist before the emperor, or excuse me, before the shogun, and they were supposed to paint something, and Hokusai, took blue and painted this big blue streak on his paper. And then a chicken which had stepped into red paint ran across his blue streak. And then when his piece was judged, he said, "Oh, these are like maple leaves on a river." and he won the competition against the other artist.
Yeah.
And so different stories like that. And so now, Rhea, as somebody, as somebody from Japan, what is your sort of understanding of Hokusai, his story or his legacy?
In Japan, he is one of the famous woodblock printer, ukiyo-e artist. And with this exhibition, I learned for the first time that he is also the origin of the word manga written in kanji. because of his artworks, Manga Hokusai Manga. So mainly in Japan, he's pretty famous, one of the popular ukiyo-e artists.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yes, and so actually, if you come down to the exhibit, you can see some reproductions of his manga.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a quick video that shows. So they're on display there where you can see them, but Mungama Patsa, don't touch them. Don't touch them. Oh, beautiful. It is so wonderful, thank you to the Japanese consulate and the Japan Foundation for making this possible, because for the Guam Museum to have an exhibit of this type, we would not have the resources to create something like this, to bring all of these things together to tell this story. And so we really appreciate the support and the opportunity that this creates. And so let's talk about, so one of the things for me, because I am somebody who grew up reading American comic books, but also Japanese manga and comic books. And so one of the things that you'll find there is a panel that talks about dojinshi, fan-made comics. And so this is something which has become massive. There are comic markets, huge events similar to what they call cons or conventions in other places in the world. And at these events, thousands of people who create their own manga, their own fan-made manga. So oftentimes usually using characters that exist in other works, they create their own pieces, their own stories using those characters. And then in these big comic markets, they sell or they trade them. And it's so much fun to see that type of creativity. I've been to some conventions in the United States, but I've always wanted to also try to go to one in Japan to see a comic market there.
Oh, yes. It's
Yes,
one of the biggest comic markets around the world, and it shows you can not only you can enjoy Japanese manga, but also you can create Japanese manga on your own.
yes, yes. And so in the exhibit, one of the things in the exhibit, and this is why I know that a lot of art teachers have brought their students to the exhibit over the few months that it's been up. We've also had Japanese language teachers bring their exhibits. We've had a few literature classes bring their students over to the exhibit. And so one of the main reasons being that the exhibit also talks about, well, what are the different parts of a manga? So not just showing examples of manga, but also what are the different techniques that people have used in the past and use today to tell a story in comic book form. And so, for example, you'll see large panels that talk about how you use speech bubbles for what somebody is saying, or you'll use how you show emotions in faces, so details of faces that communicate the feelings of characters. You'll also have things, one of my favorite are onomatopoeias, so how you'll also write words to show that, crash, bang, boom, stuff like that. And these are things which we see and we're very used to seeing, but these are things that artists such as Hokusai developed over time, and then other artists built on that and developed them even more. And it's so cool to see, because this is what I love about this exhibit, but also the last exhibit, that the Japan Foundation brought to Guam and the Japanese consulate brought to Guam, the Spirit of Budo exhibit, is that these exhibits take something that many people are familiar with, but maybe in a superficial way. So many people have seen a Japanese manga. Many people have seen Hokusai's most famous print, but they might not know the connection between those two, or they may not know them very deeply. And so the exhibit then provides those who would like to understand them more deeply. It provides that context for it. And so
Yes.
that's what I appreciate about it. And I know that you for the Japanese consulate, you've also invited different students, different teachers to bring their classes. And so I wanted to give you a chance to share what has the feedback been like for the field trips that have come to the Guam Museum.
Yes. You mentioned Guam Museum welcomed lots of field trips from public and private schools, mainly students who are studying Japanese language and artworks. And yes, we are happy to see a lot of good comments from students and visitors. And more than anything else, I'm so impressed when I see the comments like they like the exhibition, and they learn. Also, we got comments like they learn the origin of the Japanese manga culture, because many people in Guam are interested in Japanese comic culture. Some of them love Japanese manga, but the interesting point of this exhibition is that you can learn the origin of it. It has pretty long history, and it's interesting to approach Hokusai Manga, which is the origin of the word manga written in kanji.
Thank you so much. Oh, do you have more? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. So it's pretty good opportunity for a lot of students to learn the influential Japanese manga culture and the old manga style, such as Hokusai manga.
Thank you, Sidus Masi. Let's one of my favorite parts in this, and I had many favorite parts, was that there's an interesting section in this, because you were talking about how, many of the younger people, the students that have come, have really enjoyed it because they are already exposed to manga, but they, like you said, some of them are students and they're interested in creating manga. One of my favorite sections actually is the area where they have different examples of manga manuals, books that from the
Yes.
1950s up until today, that tell you how you can make your own comics and your own stories and draw your own pictures.
I
And
like
so I
this.
thought, yes, isn't you can look at the different faces and the different covers that they have made over time, and just see how that has changed too.
Mhm.
You can see the
Yeah, when I was
influence.
elementary,
Oh, go ahead.
yes, when I was a elementary school student, I learned how to draw manga from these books. I remember these books.
Yes, and for if you go to even the bestseller bookstore on Guam, you will see books like this that are sold up until today in bestseller in local bookstores here. And so I think that's that's one of the reasons why I love working at a museum, is that the museum can create a space where you can understand that something that you see every day has a deeper history, that it's part of something that goes into the past, and that it may be connected to things that you didn't really think about. And so I think that's in line with what you were saying earlier, that you know it's one of the reasons why this exhibit is important, is not just for the history, but also to help inspire young people to be more artistic, to tell them that you can make your own, you can make your own manga, you can tell your own stories. And so I wanted to talk very quickly about the last time that we saw each other. There was a resolution presentation at the Guam Museum in the gallery, and we were fortunate enough because there was a high school. Oh wait, no, excuse me. There was a middle school. There was a middle school that was there for their field trip right at the same time that Senator Will Parkinson and Vice Speaker Tina Munya Barnes were presenting a resolution to the Japanese consulate for thanking her and recognizing all of the hard work that all of you did to bring this exhibit to Guam. Did you want to talk a little bit about this resolution signing?
Yes. On November 3rd, we were honored to present a resolution by Senator Parkinson regarding our effort to bring this exhibition to Guam. And at the presentation ceremony, FB Leon Guerrero Middle School students visited the exhibition at the same time. Maybe 50 or more students were there, right?
Oh, yes. It made it very fun.
Yes, we also we are happy to see a lot of students were enjoying this exhibition. It's very
Yes,
good.
yes. No, I was appreciative of Senator Parkinson and Vice Speaker Munya Barnes for presenting the resolution. And then it was just a happy coincidence that all of those young people were there. And these are the connections that are important, is that I think that everybody should be creative in one way or another. And whether you want to create some music, or you want to paint, or you want to draw, or you want to write poetry or stories, that each of us has a desire to express something, and this doesn't mean that you have to be the best. You don't have to be Hokusai himself, but that
Yeah.
we should all find a way to just express ourselves creatively, whether it's just to your friends or your family or to everybody. And so I feel that this exhibit really helps, especially younger people, understand that part of your life should be finding some things that just make you happy when you're creating about them. And I should note, though, that Senator Parkinson here, me and him, we shared a moment in which he said, this is amazing to see how anime and manga are so mainstream and beloved now. And they're, in English, they say cool. They're very cool. But he said that when he was growing up, and that when I was growing up, being into manga or anime was not cool. You would not go around telling people, man, I love manga. People would say, what is that? What is the matter with you? You're not cool. So me and him had a moment in which we bonded over being people who loved this sort of stuff when it wasn't cool on Guam, and then being able to be in an exhibit about it at the Guam Museum as adults. So I wanted to take a moment. If anyone has any questions, we have a number of people that are watching on our live streams. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And so I can see a number of you that are watching. I've received a few messages. expressing support and then thanking the consulate and the museum for this opportunity. But we have about 10 more minutes. And so if any of you have anything that you would like to share, or if you have any questions for myself or for Reia from the Japanese consulate, please comment or send it to me, and then we'll have a little bit of time to answer. So one of the things, so we spoke a little bit earlier about how Hokusai was somebody who didn't just influence Japanese art, but he was somebody who influenced art around the world. And that there was a period, for example, in the second half of the 1800s, when work from Edo period artists such as Hokusai were starting to travel to places like the United States and Europe, and different artists were feeling very influenced by them. Somebody such as Vincent van Gogh was very well known to try to. He was very known to be inspired by Japanese works, such artists such as Hokusai. And so very quickly, I wanted to share with everyone. So the Great Wave of Kanagawa and Mount Fuji. So this actually inspired a European composer, Claude Debussy, and I don't know how to pronounce his name, Debussy or Debussy, I have no idea, but inspired him to write an entire song that was inspired by that famous image of the Great Wave. And so I just wanted to play a little bit right now for everybody. For me, it's interesting because I'm very familiar with different European artists, impressionists in particular, who were influenced by and other Japanese artists. But I did not know until this exhibit came out that actually Hokusai's painting had even influenced musicians too. And so that was finding sort of that La Mer by Claude Debussy was possibly influenced by that was a very interesting connection for me. And it's in that spirit, though, that we want to move into the last section for today's live stream, in which we talk about the local component, the local exhibit from the Hokusai Manga Hokusai exhibit. And so the majority of what you'll find in the gallery is the pre-curated exhibit from the Japan Foundation. But when we took everything out of the box, out of the crates, we realized that there was still some empty walls. And so what we decided to do was to invite some local artists who have been inspired by whether Hokusai or Japanese artists, Japanese anime, manga, who have been inspired by these things to submit work. And then we would put it up as a extra local section that could be a nice companion. It could supplement and complement the main exhibit, sort of providing some local flavor, or similar to how we just heard Claude Debussy, a European composer, responding to Hokusai, Here we would see local artists responding to their sharing their Japanese influences. And so, for example, you can see that, comic, those who have been influenced by comic books, comic art, manga. Those first two drawings there were from my brother Jack, who creates local comics. This drawing right here comes from Francis Labrador, who is an art teacher at John F. Kennedy High School, and we were both friends and classmates at the University of Guam getting our degrees in art. He was somebody who was very much into Japanese anime and manga, and so he created a series of focusing on Chamorro legends. But you can see his influences from anime in particular. There's a piece by Rick Castro, who is a professor of art at the University of Guam, and his is very abstract, but if you look carefully, you can actually see that he originally started with one of those famous profile drawings from Hokusai of a stern Japanese figure. You can still see the eye right there, even though he's changed everything else in it. And so people, on Guam have been reading comics, watching Japanese anime for a few generations now. That's Neil Katange, who's an artist who went to the University of Guam but is now in the States. Those are two pieces by him. There's a lovely piece that's Francis Labrador again, showing Chamorros in their canoes. This piece here is from Gerald Castro, who teaches art at the University of Guam, from his Inafamaulik series. And so Gerald is somebody definitely influenced by comics from around the world in his style. This series, the Inafamaulik series, really shows the impact of the Chamorro people on, the impact of colonization on the Chamorro people. Oh, there's a lovely piece by Ki Sasuiko. Ki Sasuiko, t-shirt artist, poster artist, wonderful work. There's another one by Ki. Oh, a beautiful piece by Ki there with the Tronco Nunu, the banyan tree. These smaller pieces here come from UOG Press, come from their book focusing on telling Chamorro legends. So they had different artists depict things from different Chamorro legends for their Chamorro Legends book. These are pieces from Maria Sol Marquez, a few more by, and so you get the idea of this. And so when you go there, you'll also see there's two sections that have local artwork. And I really think that's one of the important things from this exhibit too, is that we learn about Japanese history from this. We learn about this media style manga. We learn about its origins, but then we also have our own section in which the local community can show how they have been connected to this too. How they have taken these influences and made them their own, responded to them, done their own things, and so on. And so I always appreciate the chance to showcase local artists at the Guam Museum.
Yes, we are grateful to local artists for such a wonderful cooperation. So it's interesting for me to see how Japanese manga influenced people in Guam, and also it's a great experience to find Chamorro culture in their paintings.
Very true, very true.
Thank you so much.
Oh no, we are just about out of time, and so I'm sorry that we won't get to, but thank you for those of you who tuned in, and thank for those of you who submitted comments and questions. Remember that if you want the Guam Museum to do more live stream stuff like this, especially for those of you who are off island and aren't able to physically come to our exhibits, then please just let me know. But Reia, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about, does the Japanese consulate have any events coming up that you wanted to share, to promote?
Yes. Now we are preparing for the Akimatsuri, which is one of the biggest event in Guam, and we'll have a booth and where you can try Japanese yukata. So please stop by our booth also.
Oh, Biba. Yes, the Japanese consulate always has such nice events that can help promote and teach about Japanese culture. And so we are at the end of our time together. I want to remind everyone that you have just 2 more days to visit the Manga Hokusai Manga exhibit at the Guam Museum. Tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, Agupatnya, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Those are the hours. Remember, it is free. It is free for you to visit. So please, before we finish, and we wish we could extend it, but as Reia mentioned, it has to be somewhere else after this. So this week we have to put it back in the crates and we have to ship it off island to its next destination.
Taiwan.
Yes, it'll be off to Taiwan next, Biba. And so, Sidus Masitatlu, thank you so much, Reia, for being here and for all that you and the Japanese consulate have done to make this exhibit possible.
Thank you so much, the Guam Museum, for such a wonderful cooperation.
Right. So, Zen Hamzu todos ni omega, zen ume ekongo kajos.